The manhwa kicks off in a snowy mountain range, where we hear a man scoffing, calling someone a fool. He asks if the guy really thought he could escape an inescapable encirclement before demanding to know the whereabouts of the ancient relic. Instead of answering, the captive bursts into laughter, calling them idiots. Both of his arms have been cut off, yet he still refuses to talk. The captors get pissed, but one of them keeps his cool, saying they should contact the main squad first. He activates a crystal, reporting that they've got the Northern Phantom and requesting a coordinate confirmation. He can't believe the guy is still holding on despite losing both arms. Curious, he wonders why this man is after the same relic as the Emperor. Another member chimes in, saying the captive is just being a nuisance. They've suffered for days because of him, and before the main squad arrives, they want to have some fun, pay him back for all the trouble. As they gloat, the man silently plans his next move. They tell him to brace himself for torture, deciding who gets to start with a coin flip. As the coin spins through the air, the Northern Phantom suddenly bites onto one of his severed arms, forcibly reattaching it. He declares that he won't let this end without putting up a fight. At last, we learn his name. Wait. Before we dive into this madness, I want to take a moment to welcome you all to my channel. If you're enjoying the recap, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Don't just watch in silence like a background character. Let's get this hype going. So Zeke Draker, the Draker household's first failed awakener. Born into the great Dragonslayer lineage, he was supposed to inherit their power. But with a body incapable of using aura, he failed to awaken, something unthinkable for a Draker. Labeled as trash, he was cast out of his own household. To survive, he pushed himself beyond all limits to become stronger. A voice from his past echoes in his mind. If all you pursue is strength, you'll have nothing in the end. But Zeke charges forward, sword in hand, rejecting that notion. The coin falls into his enemy's hand, revealing heads. And right on cue, the guy loses his head, courtesy of Zeke's blade. Zeke scoffs, saying he's always hated that saying. Only the strong spew such nonsense. Glaring at the remaining enemy, he dashes in, slicing through the man's sword before carving a deep slash across his chest. He declares that in this world, the weak are trampled by the strong, and whatever they own gets stolen. That's the harsh truth. He then glances at his other severed arm, reattaching it without hesitation. With a sigh, he admits that escaping isn't an option now. The remaining men stare in disbelief. Did he seriously just reattach his limbs? They brand him a gross irregular, assuming he'd at least die if they cut off his head. But Zeke doesn't care. He charges straight into the group. They swarm him instantly, launching into a sword formation. Then, time skips forward. The battlefield is silent. Zeke stands victorious, surrounded by slaughtered enemies. But in exchange, his body is riddled with swords, each one buried deep in his back. Coughing up blood, he smirks bitterly. Looks like this is the end. He couldn't take his revenge, but at least he stole the relic the Emperor wanted. Maybe, just maybe, he did something worthwhile after all. As Zeke clutches the relic, a dragon statue intricately carved into a gem, he starts accepting his fate. His vision blurs, and he murmurs an apology to someone named Alicia. A drop of his blood drips onto the dragon carving. Suddenly, the relic glows, releasing a golden aura. A status window materializes. His strong will can awaken an ancient power. The soul of an elder dragon is engraved upon the will of those who persist. Then, a robed figure appears behind Zeke, wrapping its arms around him. Do you accept? It asks. Barely clinging to life, Zeke wonders why he's hearing random nonsense at death's door. Do you accept? It repeats. Annoyed, Zeke mutters that if it'll make them shut up, then fine. The status window updates. The Awakener's agreement has been confirmed. Irreversible promised power activating. A countdown begins. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we hear a younger Zeke's voice. That's what happened. But after I woke up, this is what I look like now. Zeke stares into a mirror, touching his reflection in disbelief. He's back in the past. The memories of swords piercing his body still feel painfully real. Yet here he is, standing in a place he knows all too well, the cradle. The cradle, the Draker household's training institution. The Draker family, one of the three great transcendent households, was founded by Draken Draker, the man who saved the continent 1,000 years ago by slaying the evil dragon Bahamut. As descendants of a Dragonslayer, every Draker possesses an innate aura blessing, awakening as knights with ease. All except Zeke. A sudden status window appears. The administration system is restarting. Zeke jolts up in bed, bracing himself for what's next. The system continues. The soul of the Awakener has been confirmed. Aligning. After receiving the Elder's will, authority to a part of the system has been granted. It greets him and activates his status window. A flood of screens pop up in front of Zeke. He blinks. So many magic video-like things. Is this all because of that artifact? Scanning the details, he sees his class, Healer, a rare one. Below it, a Draconian skill that requires 10 points to unlock. Intrigued, Zeke shoves his hand through the screen, realizing it works just like a magic display. He can navigate through it seamlessly. One entry catches his attention, class skill, but it's written in Draconic, a long-lost language. His master once told him, in ancient times, people classified themselves into roles based on their strengths. Each class specialized in unique techniques, known as skills. And as a healer, Zeke now has access to his own specialized skill, healing. Zeke recalls that after his awakening, they trained him to the brink of death. But according to his status window, he's already a healer now. Curious, he decides to test it out. A bright light flickers in his hand. In his past life, he only awakened as a healer in his 20s, right after the Ether Hall was unlocked. Closing his eyes, he focuses, his body shrouded in a purple mist. Deep in concentration, Zeke suddenly opens his eyes. I knew it! My Ether Hall is already unlocked. Now it all makes sense. His trained body from the future is gone, but his skills and memories remain. Compared to before his regression, he's in a far better position. And if he wants to take advantage of this, he needs to figure out exactly what he has at his disposal. A sudden knock on the door startles him. Can I come in? The voice follows up. Don't bother pretending you're not there. Zeke panics. How the hell do I turn this screen off? Before he can figure it out, the man enters anyway. You're not even prepared yet? What are you thinking? Meet Decker, Zeke's exclusive servant. Zeke, still distracted, asks, prepared for what? But then he notices something. Decker can't see the status window. Relieved, he relaxes, but then Decker radiates an ominous aura. Are you seriously asking me that? He glares. Zeke stiffens. Come to think of it, I was terrified of Decker as a kid. And even though his mind is 32 years old, his body remembers that fear. But suddenly, Zeke's thoughts clear in an instant. The fear vanishes. This skill does exactly what it sounds like. It refreshes his mental state. Zeke notes how convenient it is that the skill activates automatically. Meanwhile, Decker keeps lecturing him. I've told you repeatedly. This is a very important event. Are you even listening? Zeke, snapping back, quickly responds, of course. But then a flashback. Blood on the floor. Zeke's blood. The evaluation test, the pancranian. All Drakers undergo rigorous training in the cradle, starting at age 7. For 5 years, they endure relentless basic training. Each year, instructors evaluate students through swordsmanship competitions and the brutal, rule-free combat known as pancranian. Opponents are normally chosen by instructors, but sometimes students can challenge each other, as long as both agree. With no rules, some leave with severe injuries. Some never leave at all. But this deadly competition determines the Academy's class rankings. So the children have no choice, they fight with everything they have. The instructor addresses the students. As you all know, today is the day of the pancranian. I assume you're all aware, this is the final part of your evaluation. The students shout in unison. Yes, sir. He smirks. Good. You all seem to be in high spirits. Meet Panmark, the head instructor. Since you're all ready, we're starting right away. The pancranian begins, with students eagerly responding to their instructor's call. However, many of them side-eye Zeke, whispering about how he dared to return despite last year's humiliating defeat. They mock his place in the direct bloodline, wondering why he hasn't run away. Zeke, overhearing their comments, remains silent. The first match begins between Aaron and Goda. Aaron charges in aggressively, throwing a punch, but Goda smirks and easily counters with a kick to the chin, ending the fight instantly. Watching from the sidelines, Zeke yawns, unimpressed. He notes how Aaron lost due to his lack of proper defense and realizes that what once terrified him as a kid now seems insignificant. A student notices Zeke yawning and cracks his knuckles, grinning. It's Zeke's turn, and the instructor, Panmark, calls up him and his opponent Leon, the same person who humiliated him last year. Zeke immediately recognizes that Leon must have pulled strings behind the scenes to face him again. He remembers how his household always believed in overcoming dirty tricks to prove oneself as a true Dragonslayer. But he never expected his own cousin to be the biggest bully. Leon taunts Zeke, mocking his return and calling him stupid for not learning his lesson. Zeke's composed mind skill activates, clearing his thoughts, and he calmly warns Leon not to call him that again. Leon, unfazed, places a hand on Zeke's head, calling him an inferior piece of trash. Before he can say another word, Zeke activates Critical Strike, sending Leon flying with a single devastating punch. Zeke's Critical Strike connects, but a system warning flashes if the hit had missed, he would have been left wide open for a counterattack. Meanwhile, Leon screams in pain, clutching his face as blood drips down. Zeke examines his hand, realizing that he only meant to knock him out, but his ether hull had activated on instinct, enveloping his fist. Panmark immediately steps in, demanding to know why Zeke attacked before the official signal. Zeke sighs, mocking the very idea, questioning who in their right mind waits for a signal in real combat. With a menacing smirk, he states that striking first always gives the advantage. Panmark breaks into a cold sweat, feeling an overwhelming bloodlust radiating from Zeke. Despite the damage, Leon insists he's fine, but Panmark isn't convinced, especially as blood pools on the floor beneath him. Still, Leon is determined to put Zeke in his place and demands the fight continue. Panmark gives the signal, and Leon charges in. At first, he tanks Zeke's attacks, realizing that while the first hit was terrifying, Zeke's follow-ups don't seem nearly as strong. He reasons that if he just keeps his guard up, Zeke isn't a real threat, except for his left-hand counter, which he knows to avoid. As Zeke swings his left hand, Leon swiftly ducks, grabbing Zeke's inner knee and back, smugly declaring that the move was too obvious. He immediately topples Zeke over, prepared to teach him a lesson. But before he can capitalize, Leon takes a devastating blow. Panmark is stunned, struggling to process what just happened. He sees Leon shaking uncontrollably, while Zeke, now on the ground, looks completely composed. He refuses to believe it, but Zeke's combat IQ is off the charts. When Leon dodged the counter and went for a takedown, Panmark was sure Zeke had lost. But in an instant, Zeke had driven his knee into Leon's chin, breaking free. Leon's mistake? Getting too confident and dropping his guard. The realization dawns. This isn't the same Zeke Draker they all knew. Leon feels a sinking sensation in his gut, unable to process why he suddenly can't do anything. Panicking, he tries to create distance, but before he can backpedal, Zeke crashes in with a brutal thigh kick. Leon staggers, desperately wondering how someone with such a small frame can hit this hard. Leon barely manages to stay on his feet, stomping down to stabilize himself before launching another punch. Meanwhile, Zeke is just glad he controlled his strength this time. Suddenly, another skill activates, heightened senses, sharpening his perception. As Leon's punch nears, Zeke sees it in slow motion and effortlessly dodges. The sensation feels familiar, and now that he has mastered controlling his ether, he moves with precision. The scene shifts into a metaphor of fabric weaving around Leon's hand as Zeke smoothly counters, using Leon's own momentum against him. With a powerful throw, he slams Leon straight into the ground, shattering the arena. The entire crowd, including Hanmark, is frozen in disbelief. But Zeke isn't done yet. Another skill activates, precise stab, and he drives his elbow straight into Leon's chest, the impact cracking his sternum. The skill targets weak points for critical damage, making the hit even more devastating. Raising his hand, Zeke coldly declares that even idiots need to learn their lesson, as he imbues his fist with aura. Leon barely manages to whisper stop, but Zeke ignores him, beating his face over and over while the crowd watches in complete terror. When he finally stands up, his hands drip with blood, and Leon is left in a broken heap. Looking around, Zeke smirks, telling everyone that this is the price of fucking around and finding out. Stretching, he casually remarks that he feels much better after sweating a bit, and even starts recognizing some of the faces in the crowd. Then he calls them out, challenging anyone who has something to say to step forward. One student laughs while standing up, volunteering to fight. Zeke immediately recognizes him. Jacen Verdek, another cousin. As Jacen steps forward, Zeke taunts him, saying that fighting him alone would be boring. Instead, he also calls out Jacen's servant, Liam Stone, saying that only together would they make it a fair fight. Jacen, insulted, asks if Zeke is mocking him, and Zeke doesn't hesitate to confirm it. Jacen grows furious at the insult, but soon, both he and Liam step onto the stage. Panmark warns Zeke not to attack before the match starts, but Zeke just smiles, saying that it's interesting to see Liam again. In Zeke's past life, Liam was merely Jacen's servant at the academy. However, his future was far greater. Despite being a distant relative, Liam was denied proper education and had to beg for a spot in Valhalla Academy's higher division. Rejected, he eventually joined the Knight Order of Berenanon, a small nation. But when Berenanon fell, Liam turned to mercenary work. As the world plunged into chaos, people flocked to the strong, and Liam, through sheer grit, rose to prominence. He eventually united 3 of the largest mercenary groups, earning the title Mercenary King. The Empire itself hired his forces, leading him into the Continental Wars, where he and Zeke's Northerners clashed as enemies. However, this time, history will change. The moment Panmark says start, Jacen launches a surprise attack, aiming to end things quickly. It looks strong, but before it can land, Zeke catches his fist with ease. Jacen is shocked, but Zeke simply reminds him, "I told you to come at me together." Furious, Jacen growls, asking if Zeke really thinks he'll just fall for his cheap tricks. He immediately follows up with an overhead kick, but as soon as his leg makes contact, he winces in pain. Zeke had blocked the kick with his elbow, smirking as he tells Jacen, "You should have looked properly before kicking." Jacen instinctively glances at his leg, a fatal mistake. Zeke bursts forward, shaking his head in disbelief. "You're looking away again in a fight? Seriously?" He imbues his fist with aura, and Jacen panics, raising his hands to block. But Zeke just grins. "You're way too scared." Instead of throwing the punch, he switches it up, low-kicking Jacen's already injured leg. Jacen stumbles, completely unable to predict the feint. Before he can recover, Zeke shifts outside his guard and delivers a brutal punch to his gut. Jacen spits up blood, his body collapsing. As he writhes on the floor, he croaks out a desperate order, "Liam, kill this asshole." Across the arena, Liam Stone slowly removes his hands from his pockets. Zeke narrows his eyes, muttering, "How the hell is this dude 12? He's built like a damn war veteran." But the biggest problem? Liam's reach. If Zeke lets him attack first, he won't be able to do anything. Before Liam can make a move, Zeke charges in. Using aura to boost his speed, he starts throwing rapid jabs, shouting, "I have to take the lead." The two start weaving across the arena, Zeke unleashing a skill called Slash, a barrage of lightning-fast attacks aimed at overwhelming the opponent's vision. The students watching are still in complete disbelief. Even Panmark is stunned, mumbling, "Of course they're reacting like this. They've never seen anything like it." After all, northern fist-fighting techniques aren't practiced in the Midlands, where swords reign supreme. He wonders, how does Zeke know it? Meanwhile, Zeke's entire body throbs in pain. "Damn it," he mutters. "I can't believe how trash this body is. I'm already winded." But that's not his only problem. Liam's monstrous physique is proving to be a nightmare. He's not dodging. He's not countering. He's just tanking every single hit. This doesn't make sense. In the past, Liam was aggressive, a relentless fighter. Why is he just standing there? Then, Zeke notices something disturbing. His own hands are bleeding. His body is at its limit. But now that he understands Liam's strength, he knows how to break through. "I'll take him down through his guard." Zeke starts charging up a devastating attack, while Liam stays cautious, watching carefully through his guard. Then, Zeke dashes in with a punch so powerful it generates a shockwave before it even lands. But Liam dodges it. Easily. Zeke's eyes widen. He dodged it. He shouldn't even be able to see ether with his eyes. Everyone here has some freakish sixth sense. Before Zeke can react, Liam grabs his arm and waist, roaring as he spins, preparing to throw him. But in that moment, crack, Liam suddenly freezes as a sharp pain explodes in the back of his skull. Zeke had driven his knee straight into the base of Liam's head. Taking advantage of the moment, Zeke grabs onto Liam's arm. His heightened senses activate, and time slows down as he executes a perfect flying armbar transition into a triangle choke. But even with his arm trapped, Liam is still standing. Liam starts to cough, his breath ragged. Zeke smirks, tightening his hold. Doesn't matter how strong you are, can't do much if your brain ain't getting oxygen. But before he can finish the choke, a sharp pain explodes in his side. Liam is ripping into him. Blow after blow, his massive fists crash into Zeke's ribs, digging deep. Blood spurts from Zeke's mouth, but he just grins through the pain. Oh, you want to struggle? Fine by me. Both fighters lock eyes, neither willing to submit. Zeke tightens his grip around Liam's throat. Liam keeps wailing on his ribs. The brutal exchange continues, both refusing to back down. Some of the students watch in fear, while one of them, a female student, smirks, enjoying every second. Even Panmark is too entranced to look away. Finally, Liam's hands go limp. He collapses unconscious. Zeke gasps for breath, releasing his grip. Blood drips from his stomach, staining his uniform. The female student who was watching with excitement chuckles. Humph, I expected at least this much from him. That just makes taking him down all the more worth it. The other students whisper amongst themselves, wondering if Zeke will even be allowed to fight again after such a brutal match. Some time later, I heard you were injured. Zeke looks up to see Decker walking toward him. You okay? Decker asks. Zeke shrugs. Yeah, I'm fine. Decker hesitates before asking, if it's not too much, could I check your pulse? Zeke narrows his eyes. You just want to see if I've awakened my aura, don't you? Decker doesn't even deny it. Zeke sighs, fine. Wait a sec, he sticks his hand out. Decker grins and places his fingers on Zeke's wrist. A blue aura immediately surges through his veins. Zeke raises an eyebrow. Wait, you're a blue knight? Decker simply nods. Zeke watches as Decker checks his aura with practiced precision. Normally, when checking someone's aura, you just look at their dantian, but Decker is being way more thorough. Viewing someone else's aura is already difficult enough. The fact that he can manipulate it this precisely means he's definitely a blue knight. Knight classification explains Zeke explains that not all knights are the same. They're classified by their martial prowess and aura manipulation proficiency. White swordsman, novice level. Most children before the blessing rite are at this stage. Yellow swordsman, awakened aura. Dantian is open. All trainees of the cradle reach this level after the blessing rite. Purple knight, able to reinforce their sword with aura. Blue knight, can manifest an aura blade. Red knight, those who have transcended their limits. Zeke himself had reached this level before his regression, just like the mercenary king Liam. Black knight, extremely rare. Only a handful exist on the entire continent. Zeke smirks. So, a blue knight, huh? No wonder you're this nosy. Deckard checks Zeke's pulse, clearly trying to confirm if he has awakened his aura. Zeke immediately realizes this and plays along, letting him check. As Deckard inspects him, Zeke notes that controlling aura this precisely is no small feat, meaning Deckard is likely a blue knight, someone capable of manifesting an aura blade. Zeke also finds it odd that someone of Deckard's skill level is acting as his babysitter, leading him to suspect that someone, possibly one of his siblings, ordered Deckard to keep an eye on him. Later in the training room, Zeke takes time to analyze the system. He notices that his slash skill has increased in proficiency, suggesting that skills level up through use. This makes him wonder whether he had these skills before or if they only unlock upon activation. He also questions the difference between normal skills and class skills, since both seem to function similarly. Curious about the karma points listed in his status, he clicks on them and learns that they are earned by killing monsters, which are commonly found in dungeons. However, he won't be able to enter a dungeon unless he reaches the Purple Knight rank. Despite these discoveries, Zeke's biggest concern remains why he regressed and what the system truly is. Zeke realizes that the skills and class mechanics of the system are linked to an ancient relic, but with too little information, overthinking won't help. Instead, he focuses on getting stronger, even if it means exploiting the system or others. In this world, there are two major powers: aura, strengthened through training and dungeon reinforcement; mana, controlled via magic circles. These two forces are incompatible. Awakening one means forfeiting the other. However, Zeke was unable to awaken either, leading to his abandonment by his family. During his days as a vagabond, he met his master, who taught him the Ether Hall, a unique energy technique that allows him to harness the power of nature. Only Zeke and his master are known to wield ether. Determined to push himself, Zeke practices his sword swings for hours until his hands are bleeding and exhaustion kicks in. Just as he's about to stop, his class skill, healing, and another skill, vigor recovery, activate, instantly repairing his body. Healing is a very rare skill that I did not even know existed until before I met my master. He knows that using it in front of others would mark him as an irregular, which is why he avoided it during his fight against Liam. Instead, he had to heal in secret after returning to his room. But now that he has recovered, he continues training again. This is why healing is OP, train, heal, repeat. As night falls, Zeke sighs, realizing it's already dinner time. He wonders how he'll explain the marks all over the training area to Decker. A week later, at the Cradle cafeteria, students gossip about Zeke's dramatic transformation. Some speculate that he learned black magic, while others are excited that he's humbling the top students. Inside a separate noble dining area, a feast is being devoured by Raina, Zeke's cousin, the same person who intensely watched his fight against Liam. The room is filled with other noble students. One of them speaks up. "You might not have an appetite, but you better eat up. You need the energy for the swordsmanship duel." In the noble dining area, we meet Owen, who is speaking with Leon. Leon is clearly irritated and snaps, asking if Owen is trying to piss him off. Owen smirks. "I was just being nice, but I guess your inferiority complex is just that bad." Leon slams the table in anger, causing Raina to drop her steak. She glares at him for interrupting her meal, making him start sweating nervously. Also present is Jack, who asks what their plan is regarding Zeke. Owen acknowledges that while Zeke's fight was savage and impressive, he'll be pathetic in a swordsmanship duel, mocking his lack of strength. Leon starts kissing up, claiming that Zeke only won by luck and that he himself had to get a custom sword because the regular ones were too heavy. "It doesn't make sense that I'd lose to somebody so inferior. You saw it too. It was just luck." Raina, annoyed, glares at him. Leon can't even lift his head under a stare. She coldly tells him, "If you really believe that, then you have no right to be a knight of the Draker household." She then walks away from the table, leaving Leon humiliated. Meanwhile, Zeke explains the rules of a sword duel. Unlike pancaran, it uses real swords and is the cause of most serious injuries within the cradle. It is the ultimate test of skill among cadets. Additionally, in 1 month, after the final exams, the blessing rite will take place, a sacred event where the Drakers awaken their aura. On the dueling platform, Pamar calls Zeke forward. He walks in, carrying a massive claymore on his shoulder. The crowd bursts into laughter. What's with that comically oversized sword? Is he trying to act stronger than he really is? Suddenly, Raina calls out to Zeke. When he looks up, she is walking onto the platform from the opposite side. Meeting in the middle, she confidently states, "I specifically chose you as my opponent." Zeke grins. "Good choice. I'm more than happy to accept your challenge." Raina narrows her eyes. She notes how effortlessly he's wielding his huge claymore, and now that she's face to face with him, she senses something is different. This isn't the Zeke I knew, the one who could barely hold a sword. She feels an intimidating aura from him, but snaps herself out of it. She can't afford to be shaken before the duel even begins. Zeke acknowledges her reputation with respect. A duel against the Lightning Knight. Now, that's nerve-wracking. He recalls that Raina, known as the Lightning Knight, gained fame during the Continental Wars and is considered one of the greatest next-generation Drakers. She even awakened her aura before undergoing the blessing rite, meaning she must have had it for years. Raina hasn't used her aura yet in Cradle, choosing instead to focus on refining her fundamentals. As Hanmark signals the start of the duel, she immediately lunges with a thrust. Zeke parries, but Raina quickly maneuvers to his side and charges back in, taking the advantage. This time, her thrust is too fast to parry, forcing Zeke to block instead. The impact sends him flying across the arena. He manages to halt his momentum by leaning forward, but now there's a significant gap between them. He acknowledges her strength. She's even better than he expected. But it's still not enough. Raina charges again, and the crowd erupts, yelling for her to stop toying with him. Jack scoffs. Is that dude an idiot? Does he really think Raina is just toying with him? Now that Zeke understands her rhythm, he begins deflecting her sword with ease. Raina notices that while his openings are narrow, she can still sense them. However, no matter how fast she moves, his sword meets hers, almost like he's applauding her efforts. Then, another gap appears, but something feels different. It's as if Zeke is training her mid-duel, subtly guiding her to refine her swordsmanship. They clash again, sparks flying, but Raina starts to feel exhausted. She creates distance, realizing that she's gassing out. Zeke sighs. So this is how the Lightning Knight fought back in Cradle. Honest swordsmanship, as expected from someone obsessed with fundamentals. But that obsession is her weakness. If she doesn't break out of her shell, she won't evolve. He decides to help her grow. Zeke lowers his stance, and Raina watches carefully. She assumes that his only move is to close the gap, but she believes her speed will be enough to react. All right, Zeke, do your best. But before she even finishes her thought, Zeke is already in front of her. His downward strike forces her to dodge, stepping to the side. She reassures herself, as long as she maintains distance, she can react to his attacks. Then, Zeke digs his sword into the arena and swipes forward, sending debris flying into Raina's face. It catches her completely off guard. When she refocuses, Zeke has already closed the gap again. His sword swings straight for her throat. Raina thinks she's finished, but suddenly, Zeke's sword flies through the air instead. A blue aura flickers, and his sword lands behind him. The crowd erupts. As expected from Raina, she didn't even have to use her aura. But Hanmark notices something different. While the cadets were too slow to catch it, he saw that right before Zeke's strike landed, Raina used the faintest trace of aura, so subtle it was barely noticeable. She had sworn never to use aura before entering the academy, yet Zeke forced her hand. Zeke narrows his eyes. What are you doing? Raina looks furious with herself. Zeke doesn't let up. This isn't over. He rushes in again, but this time with his fist. Domestic violence, no jutsu. His punch lands directly on Raina's throat, making her cough up blood and drop to her knees. Leon screams in outrage. This is a sword duel. We won't stand for such cheap attacks. The crowd turns on Zeke, shouting about how a knight abandoning his sword is disgraceful, declaring that this is Raina's victory. Zeke's victory stuns the crowd, but while others shame him for abandoning his sword, he doesn't care he won. Raina struggles to stand, and Zeke asks if she wants to continue. She insists, I haven't lost yet. You only struck me because I let my guard down. But then she realizes what she just said, stopping herself. If it was a dagger and not your bare fist, I definitely would have died. Swallowing her pride, she concedes defeat. Owen and the rest are stunned. Just weeks ago, Zeke was seen as human scum. Yet he has now defeated one of the most talented heirs of the noble houses. Without another word, Zeke leaves the stage as Hanmark yells his name. Elsewhere, in a distant castle overlooking a burning city, knights are disposing of bodies, tossing them into a pit of corpses. Inside, a man named William storms into a blood-stained office, furious over Raina's defeat. How can you be drinking tea at a time like this? Abel? That bastard Zeke defeated Raina. But Abel remains calm. You're always too serious, William. How long until the blessing, right? William replies, until the next full moon. Abel stands, stepping over pools of blood. Then this is the perfect time to pay the family a visit. William questions him going alone, but Abel brushes it off. I'm curious about their youngest's awakening. Back at Cradle, while the academy is still buzzing over Zeke's victory, he quietly returns to training. A month passes, and on the day of the blessing rite, he reflects on his progress. His skills have advanced significantly. One has even reached expert rank, yet his slash skill remains at beginner. Whenever a skill surpasses the expert level, it ranks up and resets the mastery, he explains. He has also unlocked Swift Steps, a skill gained during his duel. 2 hours before departure, Decker approaches him. We're leaving soon. Zeke barely looks up. I'll join in a bit. Get everything ready. Soon, they set off in a carriage toward the Draker family's main estate in the Duchy of Troy. Unlike the family's fortress in Midland, the blessing rite must be held at the Dragon's Nest Lair, where the legend of the Dragonslayer began. Upon arrival, Hanmark's voice booms, ordering cadets to stand at attention. As Zeke steps out, he quickly realizes the magnitude of this event. I never noticed before, but all these onlookers. They're famous figures you hear about in the news. His family has likely sent informants, and he assumes their intentions are clear. Once they see me fail the awakening, they'll just go back to ignoring me. Zeke's expression shifts into an irritated scowl as he clenches his fist, clearly displeased by someone's presence. He soon sees Abel greeting another person, who asks if he's interested in any of the participants. Abel dismisses the idea. No, but I have other reasons. It just so happens that my adorable younger brother is here. Abel Draker, the second son of the Draker family, known as the Lion's Blade, has arrived. Zeke locks eyes with him, but to him, the nickname Butchering Knight fits Abel far better. Frustrated, Zeke looks away, reminding himself to stay calm. There's nothing he can do right now. In his past life, Abel never came to the blessing rite. Did my actions change the future? He glances at his scarred hands, proof of his efforts. If that's the case, this might be a good chance. Hanmark announces the start of the blessing rite and calls Aaron forward. Aaron rolls up his sleeve, submerging his hand into the sacred water and pressing against the spike. Blood seeps out as a blue aura rises, even enveloping the knight statue beside him. His expression shifts to fear as he feels the energy pour into his dantian, forming a swirling vortex that spreads throughout his body. Zeke explains that all Draker bloodline members undergo this right upon graduating from cradle at age 12, awakening their sealed aura far earlier than common knights, who typically awaken after 20. Then he casually notes, Buddy definitely picked up Hep B from that needle. As Hanmark calls the next student, Zeke mentions a rare phenomenon. Some individuals not only awaken their aura, but also inherit the Dragonslayer's trait, mana inhibition. Right on cue, the lights flicker out and shift to a reddish glow, startling the spectators. The onlookers murmur in excitement. Zeke notes that those with this power can rival yellow knights, and in exceptional cases, even red and black knights. This awakening is known as pure blood awakening. The cause of the spectacle soon becomes clear. Raina is the one who triggered it. Hanmark orders someone to bring special gloves, and Zeke elaborates that those with mana inhibition require these gloves from their family to function normally in everyday life. If one proves themselves as a pure blood descendant, they earn the Draker name, along with unparalleled family support. As the ceremony continues, anticipation builds. The crowd buzzes with excitement, sensing that the main event has arrived. They speculate on Zeke's awakening, believing it must be another pure blood awakening, considering his victory over Raina. Stepping in front of the chalice, Zeke reflects on the moment. I never thought I'd be here again. His mind flashes back to the last time he went through this. The last time, it was horrible. The blessing rite was the only thing that kept Zeke pushing forward in cradle. But in his past life, he failed to awaken, left to endure the mocking gazes of everyone around him. This time, however, things are different. He can heal, manipulate ether, and most importantly, he stood up for himself rather than surrendering. Determined, Zeke addresses the chalice. Take care of me this time. He plunges his hand into the water, blood spilling out. The knight statue begins to move slightly, causing a ripple of surprise, only for it to suddenly stop. Confusion spreads among the spectators. This has never happened before. Even Abel watches in silence. Zeke, however, is furious. I knew it. Nothing would have changed. He realizes he let himself get too confident because of Abel's presence. The crowd erupts into murmurs, questioning if he failed his awakening. Maybe the cursed blood isn't enough. Doubts spread. How did he even beat Raina? Must have been a trick. Zeke scoffs. These people never change. But he doesn't care. There are plenty of ways to get stronger outside of an awakening. Then, unexpectedly, his status window appears with an apology. It states that an error caused a delay in processing. Zeke is confused. What does that mean? The system explains that missing information from his identification terminal has been located and must be updated. As the update completes, the terminal identifies his talent as healer and confirms that his class is now unlocked. Zeke's eyes widen. No way. He turns around just in time to see the statue glowing. The red light from Raina's awakening now surges from the statue, marking him as a pure blood awakening. But unlike the others, his start's red instead of blue. Yet from Zeke's perspective, something is different. A yellowish hue flickers within the red. The status window reveals that the ancient dragon's blessing has been activated, as golden energy now emanates from the statue's sword. Abel remains expressionless. The status window continues, announcing the awakening of the fighter's blood and revealing that it has fused with his existing talent to create a unique class, the Immortal. Zeke is stunned. What the hell does that mean? The spectators are equally confused. They question the golden light, unsure if this is even a pure blood awakening anymore. However, since there was red light involved, they assume it must be. Zeke knows they'll have doubts, but speaking up now would only make things worse. The audience begins speculating that the statue might be broken, as the monolamps remain intact and there was no mana inhibition. Then, Abel suddenly starts clapping. Why so serious? We've had 2 pure blood awakenings in one batch. That's something to celebrate. The onlookers instantly shift their tone, fear flashing across their faces. They immediately agree and start clapping along, calling it a blessing. Abel shouts, demanding to know what Panmark is doing and ordering him to get a glove for the newest member. Panmark quickly obeys. As soon as Zeke puts the gloves on, he comments that they're actually quite heavy. Walking away, he notices Abel watching him with a smile. Zeke knows his intentions are obvious, but accepting his help is the last thing he wants to do. Now, the entire situation feels like shit. Panmark announces the end of the blessing rite, declaring a celebratory party where everyone is invited to enjoy themselves. Instead of joining, Zeke decides to head to the training room. Before he gets far, Abel calls out to him. Zeke, surprised, slowly turns around, admitting he didn't expect him to be here. Abel asks where he's going before the party even starts. Then, Abel congratulates him on his pure-blooded awakening, sticking out his hand for a handshake. Zeke laughs awkwardly, wondering why Abel wants to shake hands. But he knows refusing it outright would expose his hostility, so he decides to play along until, just as he's about to extend his hand, a flashback of a massacre freezes him in place. He pulls his hand back. Abel, momentarily speechless, laughs it off. Well, this is awkward. Zeke, however, tells himself that even if it's just to save face, he can't shake hands with a scumbag like this. Abel, accepting the situation, simply shrugs. It can't be helped. Instead, he pats Zeke on the shoulder. Guess I'll have to settle for seeing your face. See you again. As Abel walks off, Zeke mutters, "You definitely will." His expression is filled with rage. At the party, everyone is buzzing about the 2 new purebloods, still reeling over Zeke's golden light. It's the first time something like this has happened. Initially, they thought it was a failed awakening, but now, curiosity grows. Where is Zeke? Meanwhile, Zeke strips off his clothes and sighs. I thought I was going to suffocate in there. Then a new thought crosses his mind. Why is he completely fine? Every pure blood awakening results in mana inhibition, which proves their opposition to the dragons, the source of mana. This ability makes it impossible for a pure blood to interact with mana power devices, hence the need for House Draker's special gloves. Yet, the moment he took off the gloves, nothing happened. Confused, he pulls up his status window. His class is now displayed, and he notices something else, 100 karma points. Something's different. Instead of mana inhibition, he has a skill called mana reflection. He sits down to properly read its description. The skill creates a distortion field that nullifies nearby mana. That explains why the mono lamps weren't affected. It's not a passive ability. Now, things are even weirder. Before the blessing rite, he was a rare healer. Now he's something entirely different, a unique immortal. He begins piecing things together. All the other graduates had regular awakenings with blue aura. Only Raina had a pure blood awakening. But unlike her, his started red and turned gold. The system previously mentioned lost critical information due to an error in the identification terminal. Zeke wonders if it was referring to the bronze statue. As soon as the system input the information, the bronze statue, which had previously stopped moving, immediately began to emit red light again. Zeke lets out a sigh, rubbing his temples. Great! Another damn headache. But now things are finally clicking. The bronze statue doesn't determine whether someone has awakened. It determines the user's class. Red means a rare class. Gold means a unique class. This thing is an ancient relic, used long before the era of Tarakan, the founder of the Drakers. Back then, people actually used class systems. But now, since classes don't officially exist anymore, The statue's function had been misinterpreted. The red light was mistaken for a pure-blooded awakening instead of a rare class indicator. Zeke shakes his head in disbelief. You're telling me the family heads never figured this out? Idiots. Then he remembers the karma points. Was that some kind of bonus from the ritual? Curious, he decides to spend them, purchasing the Draconian skill shop. The moment he confirms it, 10 points are deducted, and suddenly, an entirely new skill selection menu appears. Now, he can see all available Draconian skills and purchase them. A few catch his attention immediately. Dragon Eyes allows the user to view detailed information about individuals and objects. Might of the Dragon overwhelms those around him, forcing them to submit to his aura. Devour basically turns him into a bottomless pit, consuming energy, mana, and possibly even enemies. Zeke squints at the last one. Why the hell does Devour cost so many points? It's way more expensive than the others. But instead of gambling on something he doesn't understand, he decides to play it safe and buys Dragon Eyes and Might of the Dragon. No way I'm testing Might of the Dragon here. If that thing works like I think it does, I'd have people kissing my feet in an instant. Instead, he activates Dragon Eyes. His eyes morph, taking on a dragon-like appearance as a golden aura radiates from them. He scans the room, but that's it? Where's all this detailed information it promised? Annoyed, he opens his status window. Then he bursts out laughing. The statue in the center of the garden, which was far away, now looks like it's right in front of him. His vision is completely warped, allowing him to perceive distant objects in extreme detail. Holy shit, this could actually be useful. Then, out of nowhere, a status window pops up. Would you like detailed information about this object? Zeke raises an eyebrow. Wait, I can do that too. He clicks yes. Bad move. Immediately, hundreds of status windows flood his vision, overwhelming him with every microscopic detail of his surroundings. How things are made, their composition, their history, everything. His head throbs in pain. He staggers, gripping the chair as his vision blurs. Oh hell no! If all Draconian skills are like this, I won't last a damn minute. Then his class skill activates. A warm energy floods his body, instantly restoring his stamina. He sits upright, blinking in surprise. Wait, I didn't even activate my healing ability. Pulling up his skill window, his jaw drops. All of his class skills have changed into passive abilities, and every single one of them has leveled up. The healing factor means that he automatically repairs himself, and he says that this shit is actually low-key broken. Healing may seem like it's already overpowered, but it's not something he can constantly spam, and the effects are limited. However, healing factor is infinite. He grabs a knife off the table, saying he needs to test this, and he holds out his arm and begins playing guitar on his wrist. Healing factor activates. As we see, there's not even a scar left behind. He says that since the academy takes 5 years to finish, that might be too long, so he'll just do it in 2 instead. We learn that the Dracer Academy is the greatest knight academy on the continent, one that any aspiring knight would give an arm or a leg to enroll in. It is located in the Duchy of Troy. Every new semester, there are thousands of new students. We see them laughing in the courtyard. Zeke says that the high-ranked students are no different from adults, and they are all trained to perfection. However, if he compares them to those from the cradle, then maybe they're slightly worse. While there are still children from the great families, it seems they have already established their territory. It seems as if his family is rotten to the core. Among the countless branch families supporting the transcendent Draker family, the 3 families with the most influence are called the Great Families. There is Raina's family, the Turin family. There is Owen's family, the Zimmons, and of course, Jacen's family. Even the children of those 3 families are in such a state where people are following them around. He starts to laugh, saying that it's none of his business, as he walks away. He heads to the high-class dormitory, specifically the Platinum Mansion. He says it sure is nice to be a purebred. The Platinum Mansion is a dormitory furnished with a training hall, a library, and various kinds of facilities. It is only open to the highest-ranked students, and even those from the cradle cannot enter it so easily. As for pure-blooded awakeners, they are given the special privilege of a floor master, an entire floor known as the Platinum Floor. One of the maids welcomes Zeke on his entrance, saying they'll escort him to his assigned floor. As we see, there is actually a whole staff of maids and butlers. Zeke sighs, saying that this is a bit too much, even if he is pure-blooded. One of the butlers tells him that Decker is waiting for him in his room. Zeke asks what he wants, and Decker says that he's come to deliver something. Zeke notices a box on the table and immediately puts them on, saying it is different from the other tempering gloves that he had before, and Decker says it's a relief he likes them. Zeke says that since he's got new gloves, he would like to get a new sword too, asking Decker what he thinks. Decker tells him that is an excellent decision, and because the Duchy of Troy is close to the Giant's Mountain, it is abundant with good quality iron and excellent craftsmen. It's to the point where people say that the first weapon of the Academy alumni is always a Trojan. Decker says that he's going to go search for a decent craftsman, but Zeke says that's fine, as he has one in mind, and he'll go in person to set up an appointment, as he hands him a note. Decker squints at the name on the document, Galleon Halberd. Never heard of it, but orders are orders, so he rolls with it. Before he leaves, he shoots Zeke a look. Classes start tomorrow. You better review those documents I laid out for you. Zeke groans. Man, you're always nagging. I got it. Later, we find him actually reading the documents, sprawled out and half-focused. He mutters to himself. Platinum floors completely isolated. Huh? That means I've got way more freedom to refine my Draconian skills. Knock, knock. Come in. A woman steps in, bowing slightly. Apologies for the interruption. Floor Master Raina has sent a dinner invitation. Zeke raises an eyebrow. Raina, huh? Didn't expect that. He shrugs, getting up. All right, take me there. As he heads up to the roof, his eyes land on a scene that makes him snort. Well, isn't this cute? What is this, some kind of southern cartel? Raina stands there, a bunch of dudes surrounding her like an overprotective fan club. She greets Zeke with a smile. Welcome. My family's people can be peculiar. My apologies. With a simple gesture, she sends him away. Zeke sits down, nodding. Appreciate the concern. She gets straight to the point. We'll talk business after the meal. Zeke grins. Ah, there it is. The famous lightning knight. Always planning ahead. You've even got your aura control locked in through your lower abdomen. You aiming for the purple knight position already. But something bugs him. Why is her swordsmanship stuck in a rut? He sighs, shaking his head. Such a waste of potential. Fast forward, Zeke's demolished 4 plates. He leans back, rubbing his stomach. Not gonna lie, I eat a lot. But this was next level. Raina smirks and doubles his portions. Now that we're done, let's get to business. She leans forward slightly. Zeke, I need you to accept the Turin family's support. His expression hardens. You're forgetting something. We're both pure-blooded awakeners. Raina sighs. There's a misunderstanding here. Yes, we get privileges. The platinum floor alone proves that. But that doesn't mean we automatically grow stronger. The Academy has centuries of accumulated academic and practical knowledge, along with personal instructors to push us further. Without those two things, no matter how strong you are, you will fall behind. She leans back, folding her arms. That's why support families exist. Look at Eve and Abel, youngest white knight ever and currently the black knight. She gets support from her maternal family, the Zimmons, Owen's family. Her eyes sharpen. But for some reason, the Turin patriarch told me you aren't receiving any support from your maternal family. She meets his gaze. I'll only say this once more. You need to accept the support. Zeke doesn't even hesitate. Nah. Raina blinks. What? He waves her off casually. It's not about the deal. I just don't need anything more than what I've already got as a pure-blooded awakener. As a small repayment for the meal, he gives her a crucial piece of advice. He tells her that her sword has too much strength behind it and guesses that she's too conscious of those men. To demonstrate, he pushes into a tree, causing all the leaves to fall. He tells her to listen carefully. Her greatest strength is the fluidity that comes from her flexible body. Instead of taking attacks head-on and trying to overpower her opponent, she should fluidly deflect their attacks and land a single, precise strike. If she can do that, she'll become several times stronger than she is now, calling it a Hajime no Ippo type shift. Thanking her for the meal, Zeke leaves. Raina clenches her fist, declaring that the Turin family is the herald of strength and that she was simply following her family's tradition. It's not that she was being conscious of others, but she realizes Zeke was right. She had been obsessed with embodying the family name, and that obsession unconsciously affected her swordsmanship. Zeke saw through it immediately. As a child, she was praised as a genius, but no one ever gave her real advice. Holding up one of the fallen leaves, she notices that it's actually been cut. She starts to wonder just who Zeke really is. Meanwhile, Zeke walks outside, thinking about how all of his changed class skills have insane performance. He's surprised that despite staying up all night training, he feels completely fine. The reason? He has a skill called infinite stamina, which he admits sounds broken. He reflects on his past life, where he considered this academy hell. But now, as a pure-blooded awakener, it feels like heaven. Money and power aren't everything. There's nothing quite like this, he thinks while peacefully strolling. From a distance, two people spot him and call out. Zeke turns to see Owen, who greets him, saying he's glad to see that Zeke made it into the special class too. Zeke internally identifies Owen as the third son of the Zimmons family, one of the three great families. Scheming is a Zimmons specialty, and in the past, Owen bullied Zeke while maintaining the image of being uninvolved. Owen brings up that he invited Zeke for dinner last night, but didn't receive a reply. He asks if Zeke even got the invitation letter. Zeke recalls seeing it on his desk and wonders why Owen is acting so friendly. Owen presses him again, asking why he didn't respond. Zeke laughs, saying, "You must think I'm funny. Why do I have to reply to every single thing someone asks?" At that moment, someone stomps forward, reprimanding Zeke for being rude despite the young master's kindness. A towering man looms over Zeke. Zeke glances at him and casually asks, "And you're supposed to be?" The man bursts into laughter like a classic villain, mocking Zeke for not knowing who he is. He scoffs, saying it looks like people from Cradle aren't worth much. Zeke sighs and responds, "I get that you want to look good in front of your young master, but you should really think about who you're talking to." Durban suddenly goes for a surprise attack, which Zeke blocks, but the impact still sends him backward. Zeke notes that it seems like high-ranking students are capable of basic aura manipulation. The attacker then introduces himself as Durban Roswell, boasting that they call him Durban the Mighty. He declares that in place of young Master Owen, he will teach Zeke some manners. Zeke, unfazed, bursts into laughter at the nickname. He mocks Durban for having a title despite not even being a knight yet, calling it hilarious. Then, without hesitation, Zeke dashes off the ground, instantly closing the gap and drives his fist straight into Durban's stomach. He calls Durban a joke as his punch slams into his gut, making him spew blood from his nose and mouth. Durban is sent flying backward, and judging by how hard he got hit, it looks like Zeke might have just murdered this guy. Zeke, standing tall, asks who's next. He then tells Owen to go ahead and pick up his trash. Owen steps forward, but instead of engaging, simply comments that Zeke sure likes to bask in his own glory. Then, without another word, Owen turns around and walks away. Zeke smirks, calling him a third-rate villain. He then explains the structure of Dracer Academy, which is split into two classes. The normal class, students here are taught that if they lack talent, they must overcome it with effort. Their training is strict, running from early morning to late at night. The special class, students here can freely choose their subjects outside of basic studies. Despite its elite status, Zeke realizes that everyone in the special class is just an alumnus of the Cradle. He starts wondering why it's even called the special class when it's just the Cradle class all over again. Before he can think further, a teacher calls for silence. He announces that, to encourage the freshmen of the special class, someone very special has arrived today. This person was not only the commander-in-chief during the Eastern Empire War 20 years ago, but he was also the so-called hero who stopped the Empire's invasion with his resourcefulness alone. The teacher tells them all to welcome Chief Dean Howard Draker. Howard greets the students, introducing himself and stating that it's a pleasure to meet them all. He is both the dean of the academy and a war hero, a man praised as a tactical genius. However, Zeke knows the truth. The so-called genius only survived the war because he leaked information to the enemy. It was pure luck that the information ended up throwing the enemy forces into chaos. In reality, Howard isn't a hero. He's just a traitor who got lucky. Zeke sighs, internally calling him Rat, knowing full well that this man was the main perpetrator responsible for getting him kicked out of the academy in his past life. Because of this betrayal, Zeke lost the only place where he could belong. He ended up wandering across the Duchy of Troy, eventually getting captured by slave traders and sold off to the Southern Cartel. And he will make sure to repay General Lardass. The teacher then speaks up, saying that he believes everyone has taken the dean's words to heart. Now basic classes will begin immediately. He orders the students to grab their swords and head to the arena. The class arrives at the indoor arena, which is exclusively for the special class. As Zeke takes in his surroundings, he can't help but comment, "Who would have thought that we'd be learning the basics of dragon slaying?" In his past life, simply because he could not use aura, Zeke had to spend 2 years learning what others could master in just 3 months. He sighs, telling the world to go easy on him. A man then steps forward, welcoming all the cadets. He introduces himself as Immortal Dragon and announces that he will be teaching them the basics of dragon slaying. Some cadets start murmuring, questioning who Andre is. They find it surprising that someone so young is wearing the formal Draker uniform. However, Zeke immediately recognizes him. Despite not being a pure-blooded awakener, Andre graduated early from Dracer Academy. Not only that, but he also graduated from Valhalla as valedictorian. He's a once-in-a-century genius who was awarded the Draker name, even though he isn't from their lineage. Zeke acknowledges that even within the special class, the competition really is on a different level. However, Andre is also very famous for being extremely inflexible. Suddenly, Andre releases bloodlust, demanding silence. He tells the class that if they're done yapping, they need to draw their blades. As the students comply, Andre notices something unusual. He looks at Zeke and questions his comically large sword. Without missing a beat, Zeke whips it out, spinning it around and even showing off some tricks. He confidently declares, "As you can see, this is the sword I'll be using." Andre looks pissed. He immediately tells Zeke to step into the arena. He then asks if Zeke isn't aware that he should pick a sword that suits his body. Zeke sighs, admitting to himself that he knew this was going to happen. But he just wanted to stand out when drawing his sword. Now that he has Andre's full attention, Zeke taunts him. "I'm sure I can beat you with this sword." He insists that it'll just be faster to show him. Andre, already irritated, releases even more bloodlust. But thanks to Zeke's class skill, his mental state is unbreakable. Andre draws his blade, stating that he understands Zeke wishes to learn with his body. Zeke grins, glad he bit the bait. Andre then declares that if his blade so much as touches Zeke's body, he won't just be exempt from punishment for his rudeness. As we see a rose-colored aura forming around his blade, suiting his nickname, Andre announces that Zeke will also be exempt from the dragon slaying basics class. Andre then clarifies that he does not plan on using aura against the cadets. Meanwhile, Zeke is more than happy about getting a class exemption. Since he already knows Andre's weakness, he's confident that he can beat him. However, with Abel watching him closely, it would be dangerous to attract too much attention like he did back at the cradle. So instead of winning outright, Zeke decides to simply graze Andre's clothes and lose. Zeke readies his blade, telling Andre that he's ready before dashing forward at full speed. In the blink of an eye, he slices toward Andre's neck. But Andre effortlessly deflects it. Zeke smirks, as expected of a Blue Knight. This isn't going to be easy. Sparks fly as Zeke keeps bouncing around, striking from different angles. But this isn't the same technique he used against Raina. Meanwhile, Andre hasn't even moved a single step. The cadets watching are in shock. An official knight really is on a whole different level. Zeke hasn't even managed to graze his clothes for the last 30 minutes. Zeke then distances himself from Andre. Meanwhile, Andre's hand starts to shake. Annoyed, he asks, "What's the deal with your ridiculous stamina?" Even though he's suppressing his aura, he's still losing to a cadet. He sighs. The existence of pure bloods truly is unfair. Zeke casually responds, saying, "Your stamina is just as bad as always. And suppressing your own mana isn't helping either." After all, the Draker family's aura cultivation method is known for being extremely unique. They must activate their aura during training, daily basic tasks, and pretty much every second of every day, maintaining it as naturally as breathing. In other words, for Andre, it's like he's been holding his breath this entire time. And on top of that, unique total swordsmanship is draining his stamina even further. With one strong strike, Andre sends Zeke flying backward. As Zeke crashes down, he mutters, "Losing like this doesn't help." That's it for today's video. If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more awesome videos like this. Thanks for watching.